You mentioned staying power, and what institutions are holding democracy, and how would you grade them?
Yep.
You mentioned the judiciary, the Congress, I'm not sure about them, but the military.
Yep.
Trump removed a lot of the leaders, got absolutely
Sure.
loyalist in the military.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you my legal opinion. My twin brother's got the JD, but I was just my alma mater gave me a doctorate of laws, so now I feel free to point that out to him. That I've got the senior degree. I mean, he's got just the 3-year JD. I've got the doctorate, so now not all that dissimilar to the White House when people would constantly confuse us and ask me for legal opinions on something, and I'd render them freely. And then as they're walking away, say, hey, but you might want to check with the attorney. But so, I mean, this is probably just a close observer, paying attention, being very, very focused on how do you protect our democracy. So take it for what it's worth. I think the judiciary is doing a pretty marvelous job so far. I think people will raise the valid point of the Supreme Court granting Trump absolute immunity for official acts. That was a massive failure of the test of whether they really even understood the character of Trump and the powers that they were granting him. But that's a big but, of course. The rest of the judiciary's decisions, including the Supreme Court, consistently have sided with the law and challenged the authority of the executive branch to conduct unlawful acts. So we're headed towards a real test. Right now, we have lower court decisions, and the process will play out over the course of courts, circuit courts, appeals, Supreme Court. Sometime in the summer, we're likely to face the first real tests of a Supreme Court, still months down the road. It's good, we keep buying ourselves months at a time. That helps us get us closer to these elections that really kind of change the narrative. So I think all these things are important. Right now, that part of the task is to grind down their ability to do the massively destructive things, understanding that lots of awful things are getting through. But the courts will have a test. Will they assert, so far they seem to be asserting themselves as a co-equal branch of government. But at that moment where the Supreme Court finds in opposition to the president, and the president fails to implement the law, disregards the law, then we will have a real challenge. Because the other part of the co-equal branch of government, Congress doesn't have any fortitude to challenge the president at all. But Congress is obviously political animals, and they'll take their temperature off of what the sentiment is from the population and how unpopular the president's polling. They'll take their like a weather vane, they'll follow the markets as a pointer. They'll follow the special elections and a lot of other things to determine, whether they actually grow a pair and decide to do their jobs as a co-equal branch of government. So that's not very optimistic about Congress right now, but I think we can see, based on all of these other important inputs for their decision making, these are creatures of self-preservation. If they see a risk to their political careers a year on, that is what's going to drive them. So that's not completely determined yet. Right now, no fortitude whatsoever. But the real tests haven't come. The judiciary seems to be holding for the time being. If we put our stock into a component of the executive branch, because that's what the military is, that's probably not a good place to look. Why? I think that the military is a values-based institution. In the Army, we use the acronym leadership: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. That's the way you're brought up in the military, in the Army, Navy, Marines. So I think the fact is that when we ingrain into our soldiers and leaders at every level their obligations to obey lawful orders and disobey unlawful orders. But that line has to be pretty darn stark, because if the military gets an order from the commander-in-chief in the state of martial law, they're told to order to go out in the streets, there might be some folks that protest or resign, but by and large, the military is going to show up in the streets. That should not mean, there shouldn't be a fear that the military would then use force against the population. I don't think that's implied in what I'm saying. That is a clear line. Using military force against unarmed civilians, unarmed fellow Americans, I think that's a clear line. But there's a huge amount of gray space in between. Huge amount of gray space. And the military is not there to interpret the orders of the commander-in-chief. As long as those are lawful orders, they'll have to follow them. So we'll see the military compelled to do awful things, but I don't think they're going to cross that threshold of unlawful. But that's probably something that's going to play out. It won't be the snap of a finger. There'll be martial law. There'll be probably some court tests along the way. There'll be challenges. We'll see something like that coming. I don't think it would be that much of a surprise of what Trump is looking to do. I think part of my theory here is that we had the unfortunate murder of a fellow citizen that resulted in the George Floyd protests. And last time those turned violent as an outlet. And because calls weren't being heeded, I think this time around, last time there were some checks, there were some guardrails. This time around, I'm not sure there'll be the same kinds of guardrails. So I see a flashpoint in which there's likely to be a similar type of episode, and that the military is potentially brought in, and that there's a potential flashpoint. That's another challenge, I think, or a crisis, I think, that's on the horizon.